Ever felt like no matter what you do, something always feels off? Like you're moving through life, checking every box, yet deep down something is missing. You work hard, you've built a life that looks good on the outside, but inside there's a lingering feeling something isn't right. Maybe it's a job that no longer excites you, friendships that feel forced, or a constant need to prove yourself. I know someone who felt exactly like this. A man who followed all the so-called rules of life, built a career, provided for his family, and did everything society expected. But one day he sat in his car after work, staring at the steering wheel, and asked himself, "Is this it? Is this all there is?" That moment hit him hard. He had spent years avoiding the real truths of life, the ones that once faced could have set him free. But instead he buried them under distractions, routine, and fear. Sound familiar? If you've ever felt this way, even for a moment, this video is for you. Today, we're uncovering 11 harsh truths that will challenge everything you know, but will ultimately set you free. The kind of wisdom the Stoics lived by, and the kind of insights that once accepted will change how you see the world. But before we dive in, I want to hear from you. Have you ever ignored a truth about your life, only to realize later how much it was holding you back? Share your experience in the comments below. Let's get started. 1. Not everyone will like you. Some people won't like you, no matter what you do. You could be kind, generous, and thoughtful, yet someone will still criticize or reject you. The problem? Most of us refuse to accept this. We bend, we compromise, we silence ourselves, all in the hope of being liked. We say yes when we mean no. We sacrifice authenticity for approval, believing that if we try hard enough, everyone will accept us. But that's an illusion. We crave acceptance because we fear rejection. Long ago, being cast out meant survival was at risk. But today, chasing universal approval only leads to exhaustion and self-doubt. You start living for others, not for yourself. How many times have you agreed just to avoid conflict? Held back your true thoughts to escape judgment? Did it bring happiness, or did it only leave you feeling more lost? Here's the truth. Trying to please everyone will only make you miserable. Someone will always misunderstand you. Someone will judge unfairly, and that's not just okay, it's necessary. Because the day you stop shaping yourself for others is the day you start living as who you truly are. Marcus Aurelius said it best, "We cannot control others' opinions, only our response to them." Instead of chasing validation, stand firm in your values. If your actions align with your integrity, no one else's approval should matter. Now, let's go back to the man I mentioned earlier. For years, he worked tirelessly, doing everything expected of him. He was responsible and reliable. And yet, recently, he realized something that shook him. Some of the very people he cared about didn't like him. A few coworkers dismissed him behind his back. A relative subtly made him feel unwelcome. It was like a gut punch. He did what most of us would do. He tried harder. He thought, maybe if I explain myself better, they'll understand me. Maybe if I'm more agreeable, they'll like me. And so, he smiled more. He bent a little further. He laughed at jokes he didn't find funny. But it didn't work. One night, exhausted from the mental strain, he came across a passage from Epictetus. "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." And it hit him. He had spent his entire life trying to be understood, when instead he should have focused on understanding himself. So he made a choice. He stopped explaining, he stopped over-apologizing, he stopped twisting himself into someone he wasn't, and he let go. Not in anger, not in resentment, but in peace. Because what other people think is their concern, not his. Now, ask yourself, how much of your energy is wasted worrying about people who may never like you? How much of your happiness depends on external approval? Imagine what would happen if you redirected that energy. Imagine the freedom of knowing you don't have to be for everyone. And here's the beautiful part. When you stop seeking validation, you start attracting people who truly align with you. People who respect your boundaries, who value the real you, not the version of you that bends to fit their expectations. The world won't crumble if someone dislikes you, but your peace will if you keep living for others instead of yourself. And once you embrace this truth, you'll be ready for the next one. 2. Life isn't always fair. You work hard, you do everything right, Yet somehow, life still finds a way to knock you down. You see people cutting corners and getting ahead. You see the undeserving reap rewards while the honest struggle. And deep down, it feels wrong. When faced with injustice, most people react the same way. They resist, they dwell on it, they let it consume them. They replay the unfair moment over and over, thinking about what should have happened, what they deserved, and how they were wronged. They carry that resentment like a heavyweight, hoping it will somehow change the past. But it never does. Injustice doesn't correct itself just because we feel it's unfair. Life is indifferent to how we think it should work. The promotion you deserved, it went to someone else. The loyalty you gave, it wasn't returned. The kindness you showed, it was ignored. You can keep fighting against it, let it break you, let it turn you bitter. Or you can see it for what it is, an opportunity to shift your focus from what you can't control to what you can. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Fair or not, your response is what shapes you. Anger and resentment won't fix anything, but discipline and resilience will. Instead of dwelling on the loss, ask yourself, what's next? How do I move forward stronger? There's someone I knew who faced this firsthand. He built his career from nothing. He showed up early, stayed late, and always delivered. But when the time came for a promotion, it was handed to someone less qualified. Someone who played office politics better. It hit him like a punch to the gut. He felt cheated and disrespected. And so he did what most would do. He let the resentment fester. For weeks, it occupied his mind. He worked, but his energy was drained. Every task felt heavier. The unfairness of it all made him bitter. He found himself pulling back, doing the bare minimum. Why put in effort if it didn't matter? Until one day, while venting to a mentor, he was told something that changed everything. You're waiting for life to be fair, but it won't be. The question is, are you going to let this define you, or are you going to use it? And just like that, he saw things differently. The world didn't owe him fairness. His work, his effort, it wasn't about recognition, it was about who he became through the process. If one company couldn't see his value, another would. If this door closed, he'd build a new one. He stopped dwelling on what was lost and started focusing on what he could build. He sharpened his skills, created new opportunities, and just a year later, landed a position far beyond what he had originally hoped for. Not because life suddenly became fair, but because he chose to move forward instead of staying stuck. Now think about yourself. Where have you let injustice hold you back? What's keeping you bitter when you could be getting better? Fairness is an illusion. Strength is a choice. And the moment you stop waiting for the world to be fair is the moment you take back control of your life. 3. You can't get time back. Time is like water slipping through your fingers. You don't notice how much is lost until you reach for it and realize it's gone. Most people live as if they have an endless supply. They wake up, go through routines, and delay the things that matter. They say, I'll start next year. I'll make time later, but later never comes. Because time is the only currency that never stops spending itself. And once it's gone, no amount of regret can buy it back. Look around. How do most people spend their time? They scroll, they binge watch, and they keep themselves busy with things that bring no real value. They push their dreams aside because they're too tired, too distracted, or too comfortable. Then one day, they wake up at 40, 50, or 60 and realize the most painful truth of all. They had the time, they just wasted it. And that's when the regrets set in. Not for the things they did, but for the things they didn't, the chances they never took, the skills they never mastered, the dreams they never chased. Because at a certain point, life stops giving you new doors to open, and you're left staring at the ones you never walked through. Seneca warned about this long ago. It's not that we have a short life, but that we waste much of it. The Stoics understood something most people ignore. Time is our most valuable resource, and the greatest mistake is to waste it on things that don't matter. There was a man I knew who learned this the hard way. He spent years climbing the corporate ladder, always chasing the next milestone. His calendar was full. Meetings, deadlines, networking events. He told himself he was building a future, but in truth, he was just surviving each day. One evening, he found an old notebook buried in his drawer. A list he wrote in his 20s, things he wanted to do, places he wanted to see. He read through it slowly, realizing he hadn't checked off a single thing. And as he sat there, staring at that worn-out page, the weight of wasted years hit him. It wasn't a lack of time that held him back. It was the illusion that he always had more. That night, he made a choice. He started cutting out the distractions, the unnecessary meetings, the mindless entertainment, the meaningless obligations. He stopped waiting for one day and started living with urgency. Within a year, he had done more than he had in the last decade. Not because he had more time, but because he finally respected the time he had. Now, what about you? How much of your time is spent on things that add nothing to your life? What have you delayed, thinking you'd get to it later? You don't have to wait for regret to remind you of what's important. You have the power to change how you use your time starting now. Cut the distractions. Prioritize what truly matters. Because every wasted minute is one you will never get back. And that brings us to something even harder to accept. If you want something meaningful, you have to sacrifice for it. 4. Success demands sacrifice. Everything comes with a price. Success, freedom, mastery, none of it is free. You don't rise by doing what's easy. You don't build anything meaningful without giving something up. The question isn't whether sacrifice is required. The question is, are you willing to pay the price? Most people want success without cost. They want the rewards but hesitate at the sacrifices. They want wealth but won't part with their comforts. They want respect but won't embrace discomfort. They want to improve but won't let go of habits that hold them back. And so they stay where they are, wondering why nothing changes. But here's the truth. You are always sacrificing something. If you don't sacrifice for success, you sacrifice success itself. If you don't sacrifice for growth, you sacrifice potential. If you don't sacrifice time for what matters, you sacrifice that time for distractions. Either way, something is lost. The only difference is whether you choose the sacrifice or let it choose you. The problem isn't just an unwillingness to sacrifice, it's an unwillingness to balance. Too much focus on success can strip away everything else. Too little can leave you stagnant. Many chase success so blindly that by the time they reach their goal, they've lost what made the pursuit worth it. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca wrote, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Success is not just about gain, it's about knowing what truly matters. You can have everything you want, but not at the same time. The key is choosing wisely what you're willing to sacrifice and what you refuse to give up. There was a man I knew who spent years climbing the ranks of his industry. He worked late, took every opportunity, and pushed himself harder than anyone else. And he made it. He reached a level of success most people only dream of. But when he finally looked up, the people who once mattered weren't there anymore. Friendships had faded, his health had suffered. The moments he thought he could make up later were gone. One evening, he sat alone in his office, staring at the framed achievements on the wall. They felt hollow, because in chasing one goal, he had unknowingly sacrificed things he could never get back. That night, he made a decision. He wouldn't stop pursuing success, but he would redefine what success meant. He started setting boundaries. He stopped chasing approval and started prioritizing presence. He still worked hard, but now it was directed, not just toward building a career, but toward building a life. So ask yourself, what are you sacrificing? Are you giving up short-term comforts to build something meaningful? Or are you losing things that truly matter in the name of success that won't fulfill you? Mastery, wealth, influence. These are worthy pursuits, but only if they align with the life you want to live. Success isn't about choosing work over life or life over work. It's about balancing both with intention. And this brings us to something just as difficult to accept. Change is the only constant. 5. Change is the only constant. Nothing stays the same. Not you. Not the world around you. Everything moves forward, whether you want it to or not. Yet most people resist change. They cling to what's familiar, even when it no longer serves them. They hold on to routines, relationships, jobs, and identities that no longer fit, because the unknown is terrifying. But here's the truth. Resisting change doesn't stop it. it only makes it harder. When we fight change, we create unnecessary suffering. We refuse to let go of a past that no longer exists. We fear what might come next. We waste energy trying to control something that was never in our control to begin with. And in the process, we miss the opportunities, the growth, and the freedom that come when we embrace what's ahead. Change will happen, whether you resist it or accept it. The only question is, how much pain will you put yourself through before you finally let go? The Stoics understood this well. Heraclitus said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man." You are constantly evolving, whether you notice it or not. The world is shifting around you, whether you're ready or not. Fighting change is like trying to hold back the tide. It's a battle you'll never win. There was someone I once knew who refused to accept this. He built his life around stability, routine, and predictability. He worked the same job for decades, followed the same patterns, and avoided risks. Then one day, everything changed. His company downsized, his position was eliminated, and suddenly, the structure he had depended on was gone. At first, he panicked. He refused to accept it. He kept hoping things would go back to the way they were, but they didn't. Weeks turned into months, and he was still stuck, unable to move forward because he was clinging to a past that no longer existed. Then one evening, he came across a passage from Epictetus. "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will go on well." And for the first time, he saw things differently. His old life was gone. That was reality. But instead of fighting it, he started asking himself, what now? He stopped trying to fix what was already broken. He started looking at new possibilities. Within months, he had transitioned into a new field, one he never would have considered before. Years later, he realized losing his job had been the best thing that ever happened to him. But it wasn't the change itself that saved him. He decided to embrace it. So what about you? What changes are you resisting? What are you clinging to, even though deep down you know it's already gone? You don't have to like change. You don't have to be fearless. But you do have to accept that it's coming, whether you're ready or not. And this brings us to another reality. Your mind is your greatest weapon or your worst enemy. 6. Your mind is your superpower. Your mind is the most powerful tool you have. It can build you up or tear you down. It can be your greatest weapon or your worst enemy. The difference? How you choose to use it. Most people let their minds run on autopilot. They absorb every worry, every negative thought, every worst-case scenario. They feed their fears, dwell on failures, and replay past mistakes. They assume that their thoughts control them, instead of realizing they control their thoughts. And what happens when you let your mind run wild? Anxiety, doubt, insecurity. You start believing every fear, every excuse, every limiting belief. Your mind becomes a prison, locking you inside your own worst thoughts. But here's the truth. You don't have to believe everything you think. A negative thought is just that, a thought. It only has power if you give it power. If you feed it, it grows. If you starve it, it fades. And the moment you realize that you take back control. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus said, "You become what you give your attention to." If you focus on negativity, you will live in negativity. If you train your mind to focus on solutions, resilience, and inner peace, you will build a life of strength. There was a man I once knew who struggled with this. Every day his mind was filled with worries. What if I fail? What if people judge me? What if I'm not good enough? The more he entertained these thoughts, the stronger they became. They drained his confidence. They paralyzed him. He was fighting a battle, and his own mind was the enemy. One evening, after yet another sleepless night, he came across a quote from Marcus Aurelius. "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And something clicked. He wasn't weak. He wasn't doomed. He simply needed to change what he focused on. So he started making a shift. Every time a negative thought appeared, he questioned it. Instead of thinking, "What if I fail?" he asked, "What if I succeed?" Instead of, "I'm not good enough," he reminded himself, "I can improve." Slowly, things changed. He didn't become fearless overnight, but he stopped letting fear dictate his life. He realized he had a choice, to be consumed by doubt or to rise above it. Now, what about you? How do you use your mind? Do you let it control you, or do you control it? Your thoughts are not facts, they are habits. And like any habit, they can be trained, reshaped, and strengthened. You don't have to be a prisoner to your fears. You can be the master of your own mind. 7. Pain is part of the journey. Pain is unavoidable. No one escapes it. Not you, not me, not the strongest, not the wealthiest. It touches everyone, sometimes in sharp, sudden moments, sometimes as a quiet ache that lingers for years. But the real suffering? That comes not from pain itself, but from resisting it. Most people do everything in their power to avoid pain. They bury it under distractions, drown it in noise, or run from it entirely. They pretend it doesn't exist, convincing themselves that if they just ignore it long enough, it will disappear. But it never does. It waits, it festers, and when it finally resurfaces, it's stronger than before. Avoiding pain doesn't erase it, it amplifies it. Think about it. A relationship falls apart, and instead of facing the heartbreak, you dive into work, hoping busyness will erase the loss. A personal failure stings, so you numb yourself with entertainment, alcohol, or empty pleasures, hoping to forget. But late at night, when everything is quiet, the pain is still there, whispering, reminding, waiting for you to acknowledge it. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Pain isn't the enemy. Pain is the teacher. It shows you where you're weak. It forces you to grow. It strips away the illusions and leaves behind the truth. There was a man I knew who learned this through love. He fell hard, deeply, completely. For years, she was his world. And then one day, without warning, she left. No explanation, no closure, just silence. At first, he did what most would do. He tried to fill the void. He went out more, surrounded himself with people, convinced himself he didn't care. But the pain followed him everywhere, in the spaces between conversations, in the quiet moments before sleep. He realized that no amount of distraction could erase the truth. He was broken. One evening, after months of running, he sat alone in his apartment. No distractions, no noise, just himself and the weight of what he had lost. He let it in, the grief, the anger, the emptiness. And in that moment, he understood something. Pain wasn't his enemy. Pain was his way through. So he stopped resisting. Instead of numbing, he reflected. Instead of escaping, he faced it. And slowly, things changed. The pain didn't vanish, but it became lighter. He learned from it. He grew. He found strength in what he thought would break him. Now, look at yourself. What pain have you been running from? What truth have you refused to face? Pain is not a punishment. It's a sign that something needs attention. The sooner you stop avoiding it, the sooner you can move forward. The next time you feel pain, don't push it away. Sit with it. Understand it. Ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? Because in the end, pain is not the end of the road. It's the beginning of something greater. 8. Happiness is a choice. Happiness isn't something you find, it's something you create. Yet most people spend their lives chasing it, believing it's waiting for them in the next promotion, the next purchase, the next relationship. They tell themselves, I'll be happy when they make more money, when they move to a bigger house, when they finally get the respect they think they deserve. But the moment they get what they want, something strange happens. The feeling is temporary, the excitement fades, and soon a new desire takes its place. The cycle continues. Why? Because happiness isn't an external prize, it's an internal decision. No amount of success, wealth, or validation will ever be enough if your mind is always focused on what's missing. Most people let their happiness be dictated by things outside their control. They let circumstances, other people's opinions, or fleeting moments determine how they feel. But when your happiness is dependent on external factors, it is always fragile, always one misfortune away from crumbling. Think about it. How often have you thought, if only I had more money, a better job, or the perfect relationship, I'd finally be happy? And yet, how many people have those things and still feel empty? The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus said, happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. If your peace is tied to things outside of you, you will always be at their mercy. But if you root it in something deeper, your mindset, your values, your ability to adapt, then nothing can shake it. There was someone I once knew who spent years chasing happiness in the wrong places. He had a high-paying job, a nice home, and the admiration of his peers. On the surface, he had it all. But inside, something was missing. He kept waiting for the next achievement to finally bring him peace. But no matter how much he accomplished, the emptiness remained. At first, he convinced himself he just needed more. A bigger house, a better car, a higher position. So he kept pushing. More hours, more pressure, more sacrifice. But the happiness he was searching for never arrived. The more he achieved, the more he realized he was always chasing, never arriving. One evening, while scrolling through social media, he saw an old friend, someone who had taken a different path. Less money, less prestige, but a genuine sense of peace. And for the first time, he asked himself a question he had been avoiding. What if happiness wasn't about having more, but about needing less? He started simplifying his life. He stopped measuring success by external standards and started focusing on what truly brought him joy. It wasn't wealth. It wasn't validation. It was a presence. Gratitude. A deep appreciation for the simple moments he had once ignored. And something unexpected happened. As soon as he stopped chasing happiness, it found him. Now think about yourself. How often have you told yourself, "I'll be happy when"? How much of your peace depends on things you can't control? Happiness isn't waiting in the future. It's found in how you choose to see the present. It's in the quiet mornings, the moments of gratitude, the ability to appreciate what you have while still striving for more. The next time you catch yourself thinking, "I'll be happy when," stop, shift your focus. Ask yourself, what do I already have that I'm taking for granted? Because happiness doesn't come from getting more. It comes from learning to appreciate what's already there. So stop waiting, stop chasing. Happiness isn't about perfect circumstances. It's about mastering your mind. 9. Perfection is a myth. Perfection is an illusion, one that keeps you stuck. The more you chase it, the further it runs. And yet, most people can't help but fall into its trap. We tell ourselves that things need to be just right before we can begin, that we must be fully prepared before we take a risk, that we can't fail, can't make mistakes, can't show weakness. And so, we wait, we hesitate, we delay. We live inside our heads, planning instead of doing. But what happens when you chase perfection? Nothing. Because perfection is an impossible standard. It keeps you locked in fear. You don't start the business because you're waiting for the perfect timing. You don't pursue the passion because you're afraid you won't be the best. You don't speak up because you're scared of saying the wrong thing. And so life passes while you wait for a moment that never comes. Perfection is not the path to greatness. It's the road to paralysis. The Stoics understood this. Epictetus said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." True growth happens when you stop fearing imperfection, when you embrace the process, the mistakes, the discomfort, because action, no matter how imperfect, always moves you forward. My friend, a brilliant mind full of ideas but paralyzed by the fear of imperfection. He had a book he wanted to write, a business he wanted to start, and goals he dreamed of achieving. But each time he got close, doubt whispered in his ear. It's not ready yet. It could be better. What if people don't like it? So he kept refining, rewriting, rethinking. Years passed and nothing changed. His ideas stayed locked in his mind, untouched, because they were never perfect enough. One day, after yet another year of overthinking, he came across a quote from Marcus Aurelius. "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." And something shifted. For the first time, he saw perfection for what it was, a lie. He realized that waiting to be perfect was just an excuse to stay comfortable. So he stopped waiting. He launched his business before he felt ready. He wrote his book before he felt confident. He embraced the mistakes, the setbacks, the imperfections, and slowly his life transformed. Now what about you? How many things have you put off, waiting for the right time? How many ideas have you buried because you weren't sure they were good enough? Maybe it's not a big dream you're delaying. Maybe it's something smaller, speaking up in a meeting, trying a new hobby, taking a risk in your relationships. How often have you stopped yourself because you feared getting it wrong? Imagine this. You're about to tell someone how you feel, but a voice in your head says, "What if you don't say it perfectly?" So, you stay silent. and the moment passes. Or maybe you've wanted to get in shape, but every time you think about starting, you get overwhelmed, so you do nothing. And that's how perfection steals from you, one hesitation at a time. The solution is simple, but not easy. Start before you're ready. Act before you feel confident. Move forward, even when it's messy. Next time you hesitate, remind yourself that progress beats perfection. Take the first step, however imperfect it may be, because every great thing you admire was once a rough draft, a first attempt, a flawed beginning. Failure is your greatest teacher. Failure feels like a punch to the gut. It stings, it bruises your ego, it makes you question everything. Your abilities, your choices, your worth. And because of that, most people do everything in their power to avoid it. They play it safe. They only take risks when they're certain of success. They hesitate, overthink, and sometimes never take action at all because the thought of failing is too unbearable. But what they don't realize is this: by fearing failure, they fail before they even begin. The fear of failure is worse than failure itself. When you let fear dictate your actions, you shrink your world. You avoid challenges that could have made you stronger. You pass up opportunities that could have changed your life. You stay in situations that don't serve you, just because leaving feels like too big of a risk. And in the end, you realize the real failure wasn't trying and losing, it was never trying at all. But failure isn't the enemy, it's the process. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Every setback holds a lesson. Every failure is an opportunity. The things you fear most are often the very things that will make you grow. There was a man I knew who spent years afraid to fail. He had dreams, big ones. But every time he got close to taking action, he stopped himself. What if I'm not good enough? What if I try and embarrass myself? What if people judge me? So he waited for the right moment, the right conditions, the perfect time. And in that waiting, years passed. He watched others move forward while he stood still. Not because they were smarter or more talented, but because they weren't afraid to fail. One day he came across a quote from Epictetus. "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best of yourself?" And something clicked. He finally understood. He wasn't avoiding failure, he was avoiding growth. So he took the leap. He started the business he had dreamed of for years. And guess what? He failed. Hard. But instead of letting that stop him, he analyzed what went wrong, made adjustments, and tried again. And each time he failed, he got better. Until one day, he didn't fail, he succeeded. Now look at yourself. What are you avoiding because you're afraid to fail? What opportunities have you let slip away because you feared the outcome? Imagine this. You want to speak up in a meeting, but you hold back. What if I say something wrong? You want to ask someone out, but you don't. What if they reject me? You want to switch careers, but you hesitate. What if I don't make it? And so you stay silent, you stay stagnant, you stay stuck. Failure isn't what holds you back. Your fear of it does. The solution? Change the way you see failure. Instead of treating it like an endpoint, treat it like a lesson. Instead of avoiding it, use it. Every failure teaches you something. Every rejection builds resilience. Every setback is fuel for growth. 11. Comfort zones are cages. Comfort feels safe, predictable, familiar. It's the warm, secure place where nothing unexpected happens, where risk is avoided and failure is kept at a distance. But here's the harsh truth. Comfort zones are not safety nets. They are cages. Most people don't realize they're trapped. They build lives around routine, sticking to what they know and avoiding discomfort at all costs. They tell themselves they'll take that risk one day when they're more prepared, more confident, more ready. But that day never comes, because the longer you stay in comfort, the harder it becomes to leave. And so, life becomes smaller. You stay in the same job because it's easier than starting over. You hold on to relationships that no longer serve you because the idea of being alone is terrifying. You silence your dreams because the fear of failure outweighs the excitement of possibility. You trade potential for predictability. But what happens when you stay in comfort for too long? You stop growing. And eventually you start feeling restless, unfulfilled, even empty. Because deep down, a part of you knows you were meant for more. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult." Every great achievement, every moment of transformation, every step towards something greater, it all begins with a choice to step into discomfort. There was someone I knew who spent his whole life playing it safe. He had a stable job, a steady routine, and never took unnecessary risks. He was comfortable, but as the years went by, something strange happened. He started feeling trapped inside the life he had built. One evening, he sat alone, thinking about everything he had wanted to do but never did. He had always dreamed of traveling, but work had always come first. He had wanted to switch careers, but fear of the unknown kept him stuck. And now, as he looked back, he realized something painful. He hadn't truly lived. He had only existed. It wasn't a dramatic moment, no big revelation, just a quiet realization that the life he had chosen for security had become a prison. So he made a decision. He booked a one-way ticket to a country he had never been to before. No plan, no backup, just a willingness to step into the unknown. And for the first time in years, he felt alive. Now, what about you? What is your comfort zone costing you? What dreams have you buried because they feel too risky? Maybe it's starting something new, a business, a skill, a relationship. Maybe it's having a hard conversation, making a bold move, or finally choosing yourself over other people's expectations. Whatever it is, if it scares you, it's probably the thing you need to do. The solution isn't to eliminate fear. Fear will always be there. The key is to act despite it. To take the first step, however small, and trust that the path will reveal itself. Every great life begins at the edge of comfort. So step forward, walk into the unknown, and watch how everything changes. Life does not wait for you to be ready. It does not pause while you hesitate. It moves, relentless, unstoppable. And if you are not careful, you will wake up one day wondering where it all went. But now, you know better. You have seen the truths that most people avoid. You understand that not everyone will like you, and that's okay. That life isn't fair, but your response to it is what matters. That time is slipping away, and success demands sacrifice. That change is constant. Your mind is your greatest weapon, and pain is not your enemy. It is your teacher. You have learned that happiness is not something you find, but something you choose. That perfection is an illusion. Failure is necessary, and your comfort zone is a prison disguised as safety. Start small. Choose one truth that resonated with you the most, and apply it today. Step out of your comfort zone, embrace discomfort, and take control of the only thing that truly belongs to you, your mind. Because at the end of your life, it won't be the easy days that define you. It will be the challenges you faced, the obstacles you overcame, and the growth you embraced. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these truths hit you the hardest? Have you ever had to face one of them in your own life? Share your story in the comments below. Let's learn from each other. Let's grow together.